This video is going to go over the checkpoints that you did for video 921. So hopefully you noticed the similarities between hyperbolas and parabolas. I'm sorry, hyperbolas and ellipses. The center will be at 3, -2. Remember to flip the sign to its opposite. So I'm going to go over to 3, down to -2. Now the question is the box, because a hyperbola is always going to have this box that has a center where C is. But the box helps me see the curve and helps me see how to draw the little parabolas, the little curves that are outside the box. So the box is going to have dimensions. It's kind of like you're graphing an ellipse, where you're looking at the dimensions, how far up and out to go from each of the corners. So for in the x direction, it's 1 squared. So in the x direction, you're going to go left 1 and right 1 to find the edges of the box. For y, it's 3, which equals what number squared? Well, since we're graphing this, so we're not looking for an exact answer, we're looking for a sketch of the graph. The square root of 3 is approximately 1.7. So that means that my box is going to be 1.7 in both directions. So 1.7 in this direction and 1.7 down. Now I can sketch in that dotted line to represent that box that's going to help me graph my hyperbola. The next key thing is to know what direction this hyperbola will open. The hyperbola, it's always dependent on the first term. It has no difference who's bigger on the bottom. It's all about who's first in the description, in the rule. So since x is first, this hyperbola is going to have vertices here and here to the left and right, the x direction. And again, the hyperbola will open to the left and the right as well. Now, I do want to draw in my dotted lines to describe the asymptotes that this graph will get infinitely close to. And those dotted lines go through the corners of the box. So the hyperbola is going to be sandwiched between those dotted lines from this point and this point going in both directions. This is my hyperbola. Okay? The dotted lines are all just to help me describe and sketch the graph, their asymptotes, and then that box. And you're done. Now, the one thing we haven't done is find the foci. And the foci are always a squared plus b squared. So we're going to add 1 plus 3 to get c squared. And that tells me c squared is 4. Therefore, c is 2. So that means my foci are 2 away from the center. But again, I want to go 2 away in the direction of the vertices. So that's one of my foci points. And the other foci is on the axis. And I have my sketch of my graph. So ellipses and hyperbolas have very similar strategies, but think of the hyperbola as being outside of the dimensions. The focus, the graph, all those things are on the outside of those 4 key points you find at the beginning. The ellipse is the inside of the same exact dimensions. The next question was asking you to write a rule for the hyperbola, excuse me. So note the red points are at 6 and -6. So that means the graph goes by 2. So this is at -2 and 2. So we're trying to graph this, and we're trying to find the rule. First of all, you should notice it opens up and down. So that means my y squared is going to be first, and my x squared is second. I also see the center is at 0, 0, so I'm not going to have any y minus something in parentheses. It's not going to be a shift at all. Now I have to find the dimensions. So the y ones are staring at us. We can see that it goes up 2 and down 2 to get to the vertices. So that means it's going to be 2 squared in the denominator. The x squared is going to be a little bit more tricky. But what I'm going to do is, just like with ellipses, I'm going to use the focus points. I'm going to use the fact that c squared equals a squared plus b squared. I know 2 squared is one of my values. I also know c is 6. So the equation is 6 squared equals 2 squared plus b squared. So I have 36 equals 4 plus b squared. So 32 is b squared. And that's the number I need. I need b squared. I don't need b to graph to in order to write the rule. So here is your completed rule. Of course, it equals 1, but here's your completed rule. So the hardest part should have been finding this 32. But again, it's the same idea. We're going to use the equation that describes the information about the foci to help us with that part. So hopefully that clarified a couple of things and helped you check your answer for this particular video 921. Bring your questions into class still. Make sure you submitted your form online so that we can use it to give you proper feedback.